I started 2-3 minutes before time because the subject is so interesting. I'm quite aware, even the boardroom speakers together, we had some nice discussion. I'm quite sure lots of questions are going to come. What I have taken a few minutes earlier is just to brief you what's happening in MMA next few days so that you don't miss it, because sometimes in your inbox you don't see them, because we also made a research. How many people really open and mail and see, and I'll be surprised to say only 47% of our members really open my mail actually. We also, how many read it actually see what? It's only from 22%. So that's the reason we keep telling people, we send it WhatsApp, we send it message, SMS. We're not going to let you go so easily, we pour you with a lot of messages. You should get fed up and come on MMA, but once you come to MMA, you know how good a place to be in here for knowledge, as well as for all other, meeting people. Let me tell you, on 6th of May, coming Monday, we have a discussion on the theme book, that is Memories of a Media CEO. This guy is one of the outstanding from rag to riches. He was from normal life. He went on to become the chairman CEO of Amrit Bazar Patrika. ABP is one of the leading media publishers in Purkaista. He is going to be talking to us. Along with him, we have Durba Mukherjee. He is the CEO presently with ABP. And also we have Navneet, who is CEO of Hindu. He is going to lead the conversation. So it's coming on 6th year. Please do come next coming Monday. Then on 7th, again, we have a nice event on challenges and opportunities in the cyber resilience, infrastructure, and financial sector. We have Anshraj Verma, his IAS, is the Additional Chief Secretary with TIS. And we also have Vittal Raj, who is authority on the subject, who is a partner of Global ISACA, and much more, Charles Conan. We also have Commander Retired Prakash, is a Senior Director of CDAC Chennai. So we're going to have a very, very good, because this is a subject which is very, very bothering many areas. We thought we'll do this. Then on 9th of May, again, we thought, because we read in the thing, there's a real estate boom and quite a bit of things are happening, and we wanted to really educate our members. What are the recent rules and regulations happening in the real estate sector? What is RERA? What is the consumer awareness you should know? What is the duties and responsibility of the builders? So we are going to discuss quite a bit of things. We have Aarti Lakshminarayanan, he's a partner of Shardul, and we have got also, again, an outstanding panel here to come and share with you what's all happening here. I'm going to take another 2 minutes because some of the people are still enjoying our nice uttapam. 2 more minutes, and so that we'll get them in, so that we'll... Actually, I keep telling you, we firmly believe food for stomach is very, very important as much as food for thought. So you all agree with me? Thank you. Then we also have an event on 15th of, not to be missed event, and I'm quite sure we're going to have a lot of things. Electoral reforms, boon or bane. And we have the C.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner. And we also have Trilochan Shastri. He is a person I will walk miles to listen to him. He is a professor of Indian Institute of Management at Bangalore. And he is the one chairman of the Association for Democratic Reforms. You all know what had happened to electoral bonds. He's the one who went to the court and got the thing till the end. Bond got thrown away. He's a person who fought it from the beginning to do that. He's a fantastic person, and he's going to be coming and sharing with us. We're also getting to try a senior advocate with a constitutional specialist to Indian Constitution come and share. So let's understand how is the electoral reforms. There's so many reforms that have taken place last 31 years, including EVMs, and ultimately EVMs issue has been almost settled by the Supreme Court of India. But we want to know what is going to be happening. One nation, one election. Is it correct? Is it not correct? Is it going to save a lot of money? Is it going to have dates? What is going to happen? It's a very, very complex issue. Let's listen from the experts what is going to be happening. This is happening on 15th of May here. Then on 22nd of May, again we have Read and Grow, which we do it mainly for management students. What got you here won't get you there. This, we have again 3 outstanding panel, Sangeeta Sumesh and Saurav Kumar, CEO of Kushwari, and also Venu Prasad Man. Then we also have a 5th of June, another event where we have 2 more events I'll tell you. There's a talk on 5th of June is a very, very important day for many. Can anybody tell what is the special thing on 5th of June? Why? Something special? No? Anybody else? World Earth Day, actually. Okay, and Yoga Day also on 5th of June, maybe, I'm not sure. And but do we practice yoga? But World Earth Day is on 5th of June. We thought how important Earth for us, water, desertation, and we have got some outstanding panel to come and speak to us. It's happening on 5th of June here. We'll share with you. Then on 7th of June, again we have an interesting event. Embrace the Future, the soft science of business transformation. We have 3 outstanding leaders to come and speak to us. Sheshai, chairman of Asian Paints, and R. Gopalakrishnan, former executive director of Hindustan Unilever, and Harish Bhattacharya, former Executive Director and Vice President of Unilever. So this is what I'll stop here, and let me warmly welcome all the viewers watching the program live on all our social media portals. As usual, if you have any questions, please send your questions to the number which is flashed on your screen. All the questions will be placed before the panel. They are all very, very elite panel. They'll respond to all your questions. Only request you, please attend. Your questions should be addressed to only the theme what is being discussed today, not outside the theme. I'll really appreciate your understanding and cooperation. Let me also warmly welcome President MMA who is here to come and join with us. We are able to do so many things. What Mr. President is one who is driving us to do all this, and we are able to bring it to you some outstanding events. And coming to today's event, we are doing jointly with Policy Matters, but I also welcome all the guests here, other organization, Ad Club, from other media houses, and also larger number of management students, school from branding, all that. It's a pleasure to have you with us this evening, and it's always nice to have young people. You are the future. We strongly believe you should know everything. I think things for the future will be very, very safe and sound. Coming today, where ad was making competition healthy. We had a brief chat with Mr. our partner for this, Mr. Satyamurthy, Policy Matters. Why we should do this? Because after seeing some of the people really getting embarrassed by doing something which otherwise they wouldn't have do, very well respected in the society. How can you do something? Because we do lots of ads in the Facebook, in the Twitter, in the LinkedIn. We also do something on Instagram and so many things. You should not get into trouble by doing something which is not relevant. You should not do something because we are also worrying in terms of more happening, in the terms of FMCG sector and other things. Because today India is looking as next to China. China plus one, we are talking about it. We have to be a great manufacturing organization. The world should not get a signal that Indian industry are not up to the mark and doing something which is really impacting our productivity, impacting our branding around the world. We'll lose quite a bit of our business, what you have already done. I don't want to name the brand. Some of the international brands, some of the international organizations have said something which is there. They will say something, sugar is more, sugar is less. But anyway, we have to live by what's the thing, because I think, and they also say sugar is more because that you are all getting diabetes. We are the diabetes capital of India. So many correlations are made, but that's another subject. We thought this subject is very, very important. Ad was making competition healthy. We have a very, very outstanding panel today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome our panel for this evening. Ms. Manisha Kapoor, the CEO, Secretary General of Advertising Standard Council of India. She has traveled all the way from Mumbai to be with us this evening. Then we have Mr. Shwandeep Nag, a partner, R.K. Swami Limited. Mr. Ilango, she is the Vice President of SAP Group India. And also have Mr. Shashank Singh, Head Marketing Channel Growth, the India Cement Limited. May I request to distinguished panel, please take your place on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause to our distinguished panel for this evening. Before I will introduce the panel and other things, let me also, this program we jointly do with Policy Matters, and Mr. Satyamurthy is a very close associate of MMA. We do all work together when he was in ORF earlier. Now he's independent consultant, very, very respected person in terms of international, and his authority on Sri Lanka, Maldives, and so many international geopolitical issues. And he's also a political commentator, specializes in Sri Lanka, as I mentioned to you. And as a convener of Policy Matters, he continues to be a prominent figure in journalism and policy discourse. And now I request Satyamurthy to come and give his opening remarks before we move further. Mr. Satyamurthy.
Good evening, everybody. Today's title ad was Making Competition Healthy. The subtext is the main text, I think, of this today's discourse. That is making competition healthy. My first acquaintance with this topic was about 45 years back, when as a young journalist in Indian Express Kochi, I came across an issue. Of course, it has nothing to do with me. That is when I became aware of it. The previous week, there was a campaign by one of the lesser known Indian razor blades of all things. Suddenly there was another set of campaign. My friends in the ad department in the newspaper told me that we are getting another 6 from a foreign razor company established in India. Around 7-8 in the evening, suddenly the ad department calls us and that page has been pulled out. You edit people have to fill that page with material. The 8 columns, though they printed lino composing and all that. I don't think any of you will know about it unless you were in that industry earlier. Was a very difficult task. We managed it. But what has happened in between, around the evening, the chairman of the group, Ramnath Goenka, had sent a message to all editors saying the new 6-day insertions of full page insertion for 6 days was unethical and illegal because it was a campaign against the Indian brand. Of course, the foreign brand was also already settled in India. So we will be hauled up before all kinds of institutions, including court. So pull it out. I don't know what other interest played the same. But I knew that Indian Express group managers and editors across the country were advised, they asked to advise fellow newspapers that we have consulted the lawyers, there is an issue. Next day, because of curiosity, we looked up, other than very small number of small newspapers, no national newspaper carried that ad campaign. People were willing to sacrifice money, which was as dear then as it is today, or maybe dearer at that time, just to stand for ethics and not to go before the court. Today we know, in fact that is what made us think of the topic at this evening. The Supreme Court is seized of a matter where there is an ad war, or a man is an individual and his company, or fighting first a war with themselves and a war with the Supreme Court of India, which rarely anyone does in this country. Again, it is of a matter of ethics, and it is taking various shapes and sizes, and the people have already begun to forget it in the social media era. In between, I think some of you at least will remember, there was about 25 years back, and with that I will close my small opening remarks, there was another campaign. You will remember Indian brand called, soft drink brand called Thumbs Up. Suddenly all newspapers in the country carried a news item, not an ad, saying it contains brominated vegetable oil. That company was forced to close down or bring down, things like that. Many of you will remember. Right? Then 6 months down the line, you had massive ads across the country for a Western American brand, Pepsi. The tagline was, this does not contain BVO. Now, you can correct 1 plus 7 and make 2, 5, 7 or whatever you want. This is a kind of unhealthy competition that had existed, that continues to exist, and in this, as we were discussing in the evening, in the digital era, it is becoming increasingly difficult to monitor. Of course, every now and again the Supreme Court passes orders, Parliament passes legislation. Is there a real mechanism to follow it up? Punish the guilty when they are still in the business? If you initiate an action, it is going to take you 10 years in the Supreme Court. By the time that company, the guilty company might have even wound up and gone away. So how to manage this? Make ad, because it's a huge industry. So ad industry supports not only the ad industry, but marketing. The entire media industry is dependent purely on ads. Let us make no mistakes about it. I think it was about 20, 30 years back. Maybe, of course, someone here may be able to give me the latest data. About 30 years back when I was in the Hindu, there was a calculation done by the management that each copy of the newspaper would cost 625 rupees to produce without any ad. But they were selling it at 2.5 or 3 rupees at that time. Then you can imagine the kind of the importance ad industry has in newspaper industry. We are talking in terms of education, employment, family income, so and so and so, plus the way it has been influencing individual opinions, purchasing decisions, and even political decisions. Remember in 1984 was the first time India really had a ad war on elections. Immediately after Indira Gandhi's assassination, when we had elections in this country, the Lok Sabha election that were anyway due but was adjourned by a couple of months. Congress party was the first one to hire an ad agency to run its campaign. From then on, we have moved far away and far into the realm and outside the realm. Unfortunately, with the result, we have negative campaigns, and today this era of AI, if you have to call them as it is, you can call them propaganda, PR or whatever, at the end of the day they are ads. You may not be able to distinguish one from the other or the truth from false. This may be the case with the product ads also. For that, we have experts here to tell us what exactly is the state of affairs in terms of healthy competition and the ad industry. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satyamurthy, for setting the context and the opening remarks. Before I introduce the distinguished speakers and the panel for this evening, let me tell you two more things which I forgot to tell you. One is MMA Award for Managerial Excellence. It's already open. It's, the nomination forms are already sent to all the people. We give our award under the 4 categories: manufacturing, services, education, and SMEs. Please send your nominations. Other one is election to MMA papers have already been sent. Anybody interested could do that. It's already been sent individual mails. Then also training program for the next 3 months calendar has already been shared with you so that you can block your calendar and attend all the training programs which is brought to you at a very, very special rates. Then we have the privilege of introducing distinguished panel before we call upon them to share their insights. Ms. Manisha Kapoor, the CEO, Secretary General of Advertising Standard Council of India, has been with the organization since the year 2015 as a Consumer Compliance Council GCC member, and with over 25 years of experience in brand and business strategy across various industries. She leads strategic initiatives to position ASCI for the future in a dynamic advertising landscape. Internationally, Manisha represents ASCI as one of the 4 vice presidents on the executive committee of the International Council of Ad Self-Regulations, which is located in Brussels. The management graduate from Bajaj Institute of Management, and she also brings wealth of expertise in her role. Very warm welcome to you, Manisha. It's a pleasure to have you this evening. We also have Mr. Swandeep Nag, is a partner of Arkeswamy Limited. He's also a marketing graduate, delved into advertising to diverse consumer segment, product categories. With over 17 years of experience across Calcutta, Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, he led officers campaign and numerous brand launches and skilled in P&A leadership, brand architecture, communication, planning and the market research. He values inclusive leadership and experimentation. The expertise span FMCG, fashion, retail, education, finance, automotive, media and more. So Swandeep is enthusiastic about leveraging data and technology for compelling storytelling and enjoys cricket and driving. Very warm welcome this evening. I'm quite sure you'll be supporting CSK, I suppose, not KKR. Mr. Ilango. Mr. Ilango is Vice President of FCB Group India, leads operations at the Chennai branch with focus on revenue generation and team management. With years of experience, he has transformed the Chennai office into a thriving hub through strategic acquisitions and client relationship management. His leadership extends to nurturing a strong core team and navigating growth in challenging market. Actively involved in industry forums, he contributes to Madras Advertising Club and Madras Management. In a big way, we do our work together, while also lecturing on business schools, adept in advertising management, brand planning, communication. Ilango is recognized for his interpersonal finesse and team building skills. Warm welcome to Ilango. Pleasure to have you with us again this evening. Let me have the privilege of introducing Shashank Singh. Shashank Singh is head of marketing and channel growth of India Cements, brings over 10 years of experience from roles of control to Gulf Oil India, Chennai Super King. I think no wonder he's wearing the Super King. He's the one who created the brand of Chennai Super King in a big way. With expertise in transforming product into favor brands across diverse industries, he drives large scale growth of profitability and armed with the skills in product development, project management, marketing communication and digital marketing. Shashank continues to be a valuable insight in the industry, including spearheading successful market campaign like 300% increase in merchandise in CSK, holding MBA in marketing from Indian School of Business and a BTech in computer science from Delhi Institute of Technology. And one thing is CSK must see, not only in Chennai you get the yellow t-shirt, you're getting all the stadiums are filled with CSK. So how many t-shirts you would have sold? So you can well imagine. Shashank, pleased to have you with this. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the pleasure. What a brilliant panel we have this evening. And now I will request Manisha to deliver the keynote address. Thereafter, each of the panel will share their insights for about 5 to 7 minutes. Then Mr. Ilango has agreed to lead the conversation with the rest of the panelists. In the meanwhile, you can send you all your questions. We'll compile them, place it before them. Over to you, Manisha.
Thank you very much. Absolutely my pleasure and honor to be here, with all of you at the Madras Management Association. And I'm really looking forward to speaking with all of you. We had some great conversations earlier, and I think, ASCII being based in Bombay does not give an opportunity to interact a lot with the industry that is based here and, people in management that are based here. So, thank you so much for the opportunity and, indeed a pleasure to be here with all of you. Okay. So I will just, I thought very quickly tell you a little bit about the Advertising Standards Council and what we do, and we'll come to our role in terms of what we do on advertising. So we are the self-regulatory body of the Indian advertising industry, which means that we are not the government, we are not a statutory body, but we are formed by the industry to take care of its own ads in a voluntary fashion. Okay. We have an independent jury. Sometimes people are saying that, it's from the industry and you're hearing industry cases, so, how will you be neutral, how will you be fair? The jury that we have is an independent jury, does not report into ASCII. We have a free grievance mechanism for anyone who would like to complain to, about an ad that you may have seen. We have had, the government sends its complaints to ASCII. We have had even Supreme Court judges sending their complaints to ASCII because I think they believe it's a quick, speedy, fair mechanism, to sort out complaints. But we also have a very active, suo motu surveillance cell, which looks at digital advertising. The ASCII code itself, is appended with several other acts. So while we are not a statutory body, our code does have recognition in law. So we are part of the Cable TV Act, we are part of the Insurance Development Authority Act, we are part of the Prasar Bharati, Doordarshan, their codes have also adopted the ASCII code. We are part of a global network of self-regulatory organizations in advertising in different parts of the world. We work quite closely with the government on various projects. And a lot of times in Parliament, when you hear debates on misleading ads, a lot of times the data that is quoted sometimes is the ASCII data. So just as a, that's at a glance, I think in that sense we've been a specialist body looking at advertising and, perhaps what can be better in advertising and how do we make this a more responsible industry. So there are 4 parts to the ASCII code, and today I know our focus is the 4th one, which is ad wars, and therefore when you're talking about competition, how do you do it? But essentially we look at honest representation, so we do not want ads that are misleading. We don't want ads that are offensive to the public. We don't want ads that could be, are depicting harmful situations, and particularly when it comes to children. How do we kind of make sure that there is a fair kind of bargain there? But like I said, fair in competition. So this is an interesting aspect that, we could talk about today. So we do have a lot of sector-specific guidelines as well. So we have, on misleading ads, but we also have interpretation of this for, let's say, for the auto sector, or for, awards and rankings, or the education sector. I mean, these are sectors which advertise quite heavily, and we do see a lot of misleading ads, in these sectors. So there are some specific guidelines made for each of these sectors. We were discussing earlier in the room that, when ASCII was formed, really the role that it played seemed to be more of corrective action. That, if you make a mistake, we are going to catch you. But I think increasingly we also want to help the industry get it right. We don't only want to catch them when they get it wrong. So idea is how do we prevent irresponsible ads or misleading ads coming into the market in the first place. So with that view in mind, last year we established an academy. We would be very happy to again partner with MMA to see how we could train industry, students, teachers, to actually work closely with the ASCII Academy network. Essentially training people so that they know what is compliance with law, what is responsible advertising, so you don't make those mistakes. We also raise a lot of important issues on advertising. I think some of you would have received a copy of some of our reports. We also have a sheet with the QR code to the other links. So all these reports are available on our website for any of you to see. So right from the role of gender in advertising to, generative AI and advertising ethics. So it really covers a lot of gamut. So I'll just take another 2 or 3 minutes to just talk about ad wars and making competition healthy. And a lot of people ask us, XYZ is fighting against this brand, or Pepsi is fighting Coke. Last year there was a huge debate on honey. I don't know if some of you caught that, between Dabur and Marico, etc. What is really ASCII's take? Is there anyone who would want to kind of volunteer a guess, or what do you think? I mean, what's ASCII's take on the ad wars? Sorry? Umpire. That's a tough job actually as an umpire, but luckily having the code, makes it easy for us to interpret what is happening. So the thing is that, does ASCII have a problem of ads talking about competition? We don't even have a problem if you are naming your competitor. Okay, so this is something interesting to keep in mind that, ASCII does not say that do not name your competitor or do not say something, against your competitor. However, we would like that comparison to be fair. Okay, that the comparison does not give an unjust advantage to one party over another. So we are very much in favor of healthy competition, that we would like that consumers should be able to choose between 2 products or brands by knowing, the qualities of one versus the other. But yes, the main thing is that, it should not be in a way that is misleading, and it should not be unfairly denigrating your competition. So you can compare, but you cannot denigrate. You can say, I am better than X, and you have the evidence, by all means you can claim it. But you should not say, X is bad. You can say you're better, right? So those are things, and also, plagiarism, etc., which are again becoming very important issues. Those are things to be very careful about. So I have a few ads, maybe if we have the time later, we could play them, or should we play them now?
Yeah.
I have 3 or 4 ads, maybe I can play one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an ad, an interesting ad. This complaint was filed by Parle G Biscuits. saying that, I think this ad is in Bengali actually, so maybe sure you may be able to help us translate it in the best, most accurate thing forward, where they're saying that, and some of you would know that in Hindi, G is quite commonly used as a sign of respect to people. So, but Parle G is also G, so there is some, kind of commentary happening between the protagonists on whether the use of the word G is denigrating to Parle or not. So this is an interesting case. I'll just play the ad.
এসব সানরাইজ ছাড়ো, বাজার অফার যে ফুরিয়ে যাবে।
মন্ত্রা মশলা একটা কিনলে একটা ফ্রি, তাড়াতাড়ি।
ইমামি মন্ত্রা মশলা, buy one get one free.
So you may not have heard, it's actually an ad in Bangla. So
I couldn't also get
the audio very clearly. Yeah. So as I said, it is basically where he was saying your Parle G, and he was saying G haan, G nahi, and they kept feeling that that was talking about Parle G, whereas actually the ad did not really denigrate the brand in any way. So from an ASCII perspective, that was okay. We didn't have a problem with that. Just another example of an ad for a Gujarati published in Gujarat by Z. Which was again saying that Z has done well, so all the hearts for Z, and says that, the others, they're showing the emoticons which are either angry or, upset. And so again, the jury ruled that, the first line is okay, but there is really no need. I mean, they've also got some 400,000 likes and whatever, but so that does not mean that you show an angry emotion, next to them. So these are some of the cases that, we are there. If we have time later, we can come back to some of them, but I don't want to eat into the time of, the other panelists, and also leave enough time for discussions. So, so like I said, to summarize, you can advertise against your competitor. There is no problem because competition is good for the consumer. The consumer will know what, are the features of your brands versus competition. Competition in that sense is healthy and in the interest of consumers. You can name your competitor, but only what you're saying needs to be fair, factual, and non-denigrating. So if you have those, by all means, go ahead and have ad wars, no problem. Wars can be played within rules. Yeah, thank you.
We can request each of the panel to share their insights. Start with Ilangu. You can take over from here now. You can decide who will do at what. Over to Ilangu.
Check. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, Manisha, for these lovely insights and also getting us up to speed on ASCII, because in this part of the country, like you said, not many of us, especially students and even advertisers, may not have really known about the work of ASCII. Also interesting how Satyamurthy sir mentioned, when he was in media, when he was in Hindu or Indian Express, his own experiences. I just want to share an anecdote of my own experiences with Hindu when I started my career in advertising, and how Hindu used to take their role seriously about regulating advertising that happens on their. You mentioned how without advertising, the price of a copy of Hindu would be around 600 rupees or something more. But advertising subsidizes it for the reader, so you get it for 3 rupees. Then imagine the kind of dependence a business like newspapers should have on advertisers. But 20-30 years back, I remember, when you send an ad to be published in Hindu, yes, of course, they welcome you, but then they can also reject that ad. So after getting it approved by the clients, and then rushing it to Hindu in the late hours of the night, suddenly next day the ad won't come because Hindu has rejected it. And when you take up with them, and the Hindus' stand on that was very clear. Our readers trust us. And when we carry an ad, that is almost like us having vetted that ad. So if you have a false claim, especially about investment products, right? I remember if you make some tall claims about returns on your investments, Hindu won't accept it. So those were days when the media themselves had regulation on advertising. These were, I think, around the time when probably ASCII was also formed. And also remember, even in Doordarshan, if you were to do an ad in the Doordarshan, before making the ad, you have to get the storyboard approved by Doordarshan. And they would be very, hard on you. Like, you can't show an army officer or a Jawan in the ad. So the agencies would come around and say, a man in uniform, a man in security uniform is doing this. They would be very clear about portraying religious figures. So you would say a woman in a long white cloak, if you want to show a nun. There were interesting things that were workarounds that we had. But thank you, sir, for those, taking us back to those days when media houses also played their role in regulating advertising and content. And I just want to share just a couple of other points about the topic that we are talking about. Being from the ad industry, one of the things that has stuck with me is a vision statement for an advertising agency brand. Okay? The agency is McCann Erickson, and their vision statement, or a tagline if you wish, is truth well told. That's one line that has stuck with me all through my career in advertising about what is it that we are called to do. We are called to speak the truth, but not plainly. Do it well. Do it interestingly. Do it in a creative manner. And that, I believe, is a mantra that each one of us in the industry, in advertising, in marketing, can take that up and practice. And how we do that is for the agency, for our people who create advertising, for us to know the product enough, for us to know the truth enough. So many of our agencies, we have a practice of product interrogation before we set out to do an advertising. Sashank is one of our clients. So before we get to create a piece of advertising for India Cements, we want to know the product in and out. So we spend time with him. We spend time with, some senior people who take a long time to, help us understand what this product is actually doing. How does it work? So it's always good for advertising practitioners to interrogate the product and get to know the truth so that you can, can speak the truth, well. The other point of view that I have on ad wars, I don't know, the nomenclature is it's a very, cliched, nomenclature in business, wars, right? Jack Trout, Al Rice, they had a book called Marketing Warfare. And then there are podcasts which are called Business Wars. And here we have ad wars. Are we really at war? Are we doing business or are we doing at war with each other, brand to brand? So when you look at that as an ad war, when you look at this as a marketing war being fought over market share, then you would say all is fair in love and war, and then anything goes. But I believe we should not be so focused on market share driven marketing, but be focused on value driven and growth driven marketing where you strive to be better than how you were the previous year. You try to grow your business. Even, I think there is enough in the marketplace for everybody. So, like Manisha suggested, you talk about yourself. Even if you want to talk about the others, do it in a fair manner. Do it with truth. So, these are the 2 points that I just wanted to share with you all on as my thoughts on this topic. So, maybe we'll go to a client and then come to the agency again. Yeah? So, Sashank, your views, please.
Thanks, Elongo. Audible?
Yeah.
Super. Firstly, thank you to MMA for inviting me. I think it was really privileged. I think around 20 days back, Captain came and told me, we are going to speak on this. And what I did was, did my research, talked to a lot of guys who are in the industry of figuring out where to do, what to do, talk to a lot of marketers, consumers, figured out the right strategy. And I think by the end of the day, we will have the 5 tips to close everything, right? We should not have any problem after this, which I will share with you. If you were to hear ever such claims, please understand those are wrong claims. That's what I was trying to hint at, right? There are no golden gooses where you bell the goose and you get the thing in your hand, right? There is no short way of building a relationship with your consumers. So what I try to do today is, and I would love to hear from the audience here as well. Majorly, I'll try to put my point of view. I'll be honest to what I see as a marketer, purely running for a company who's trying to grow his business, grow his market share. And how do we deal, or generally how should we deal with things when we have challenges? How does our life look, right? And I think it's very important for both the regulators, the advertisers, to understand our challenges and possibly, how do we kind of come together and build something which works ethically for the consumers, as we say. What is ethical? One version to other, right? But yeah, I think we need a rule book for sure, which I think the regulators are definitely working on. So more from speaking from a regulator's perspective, I think I'll try to speak from a marketer's perspective where I can be a little more honest and possibly we can delve into that further. See, one of the things which at least it happens to me every month. Today is a month end, by the way, for us. It's April 30th. I was talking to you long ago that, our sales are on fire. We are only like 20,000 tons away from achieving our number. What do we do today? Tomorrow is a Labor Day. Can we use that moment and do something for the workers and laborers and say something very different so that ultimately I get some sales on May 1st and maybe get some volume when the markets are generally low. These are, how do I put it? These are things which are existing, opportunities which exist for the marketers generally. And I'm a clear believer that we are a very capitalist economy at the end of the day as India, right? And most of us have to understand that we're all profit driven. We're all market share driven up to a certain point. How do we do it sustainably is the question, right? Luckily, I've worked for some of the brands. I've also worked for a startup, so I can talk about both the versions. But I think it comes from the top leadership of whether you're here to dominate for the next 10, 15 years or are you here to dominate for the next 1 year, right? And it is not a problem of just the startups who are working for fundings. This is also true about big companies who are working but are losing their market share and they say, this 1 year is pivotal for me. If you're there for the long haul, which is what ultimately a brand and a consumer relationship or sustained profits leads to, then I think such gimmicky works doesn't work with the consumer. It may work for a day, it may work for 2 days, 3 days, but generally what happens is that, as we all say, right, consumer is the king and finally comes and says, I don't want your product because your claims are absolutely false, rubbish, XYZ, right? For any brand to brand. So I'm not going to mention any brands here, but just trying to say that as marketers, what can we do when we're trying to solve these things, right? I think some of the things which we should not forget is, number one, always under-promise and over-deliver. Basic principles, basic DNA of how to create consumer delight. We have all, I think most of you guys must have come from top B schools, advertising schools. Basic DNA which they teach everyone, whether you take marketing or not, is see how can you create a consumer delight. I can talk about the brands at least I work with. That's one fundamental DNA that we work on. You may see it with CSK, you may see it with India Cements, you may see it with Gulf Oil, whatever brand. We keep working and saying, okay, I can do 10 things. Forget about the most extreme things which I may be able to do, but if I do 10 things, can I talk only about 4 and let the consumer come back and feel my remaining 6 things? Right? So always under-promise and over-delivers actually has a gain on your market share, on your profitability, because that means I get more repeat purchases, I get better word of mouth, and I don't have to depend on this media bot influencers which are there on social media these days, right? In fact, for me, I think the social media, as a marketer, I can tell you, I'm sure most of you are also able to overlook it. Influencers were, considered a way to get good talk of the product. But today, I think everyone sees through it. I think most of us see that this guy has been he's talking something which he's been talking for 10 different brands, and I think that works negatively for a brand or a product generally. Doesn't help. So that's number one. Under promise and over deliver always. Number two, a lot of agency and client, and we mostly in the corporate rooms, right at the top floors, you will hear insights. You know what I've heard about a new insight about a consumer? It's such a derogatory term. I think insights haven't changed for the last 1,000, 1,500 years. And I think this business schools have been talking about, but I think unfortunately, we always believe that, the new age media is happening. There's something happening in AI right now. There's a new insight there. I think the consumer has started doing things differently. The motivations, the aspirations of consumers haven't changed much. The reasons for it. The nuances have. So there has to be a very clear distinction of what is an insight and what is the nuance of that insight. I think as long as we're very clear that the nuances will change as per the climatic conditions, as per maybe today because we are running into an election, the nuances of the same thing may vary. But as marketers, if you're very clear that the insights are only maybe countable on the fingers, then ultimately as marketers who are trying to put ads or anything, you can talk only these many things to get your consumer going, right? So it is all about what nuances you drive, but I think making claims which are very extreme generally doesn't work with the consumers as well, and I'm sure most of the consumers even kind of overlook it and see it. So I think as marketers, we are kind of guilty in some sense to reduce our own market share and profitability. I think I'm not talking from being ethical and other stuff. As long as we are honest to our insights, and I think if I can just go a little deeper into that, I think a bulk of it purely happens because perhaps most of us don't know our consumers that well. And therefore, I think as marketers, one of the things that all of us should do, and I have to keep learning. I mean, I can tell you today that after being in the cement industry for 2.5 years, I still don't know my consumer well enough. I have been following the CSK fans. I still don't know my fan. What does he want? What is that core thing that pushes him? Yes, I know everyone loves MS, everyone loves the Yellow Army and all that stuff, but what is it? We have 2-3 answers, but we're still trying to figure it out. So ultimately, know your consumer, what it makes, and then keep changing. I mean, adapt to the medias, adapt to whether you're doing on print, social media, TV, you adapt, talk about the nuances, and push the envelope. Also from a regulatory perspective, I think, Manisha was rightly speaking, I think most of us as marketers are also not aware of what is ethical, what is a book, right? And I think, I'm very glad to hear there are some new courses which are coming up. But I think it should be in some sense mandated. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I think there should be a mandate for every guy who's holding a marketing stake or an agency stake or whoever is responsible for advertising or communication in some sense should have some tuition or something going on where they understand what are the ways, what are the do's and the don'ts, whether it's as per ASCII or is it as per CCPA or whoever. I mean, we should know what is the golden rules of what to do and what not to do. A very thin line. The Indians are very emotional, and I think only the young generation is right now coming and talking about it. We had lost a lot of confidence, or we are just being growing confidence as India. So good that the consumers are also going to shout more if something really extreme happens. But ultimately, I think we have to keep the consumers in mind, and trust me, I mean, as industry experts, I think we should try to solve it. That we believe that we take pride that certain things are being discussed in Supreme Court of India, some cases, and that's why this topic becomes relevant. I see it as a very disgraceful way for us as marketers and advertisers that ultimately a Supreme Court's time is being taken for such an issue, which all of us in this community could have figured out a way to solve, right? So, I think there are ways to go. I mean, we'll keep discussing across the day as we move, but I seriously believe that where the tens and thousands of cases of Supreme Court are already not being answered, was there a case for this being discussed? Could it have been handled better among us with the right way to protect the consumers? It's a question that we all need to answer. I also believe, last point, I think, from a market perspective, and I'm pure capitalist at heart. Seeing the consumption numbers, seeing the kind of advertising that is happening, seeing the kind of companies and more companies coming in, I think we have a chance as India to develop a product for the globe, which kind of, if all of us get together, the advertisers, the marketers and the regulators, along with possibly some public legislation in between, create a book which can possibly be the next world's UPI in some sense, right? I think there's a chance for that because there's a huge market for it. Today, with the AI, I think the scale can happen. And Manisha was just telling us back in that they are already working on it. That's pretty good, but I'm sure they can't do it alone. There has to be a formal body where everyone comes in together, and I think possibly across the day we can figure out, as I told you, I don't have that 5 best strategies of what will work, but I think across the day all of us have to find an answer of how do we develop this from a business perspective, from just a money-making perspective. At least I can easily sniff good money that can be made by the organization or by the company, or whether it's a public-private or whether it's regulatory, to be made there, because the kind of diversity that India holds. So on the medium part, Longo, even today Facebook, like how Hindu used to do it at some point of time, as you were mentioning, Facebook, Instagram also have their own ways where you may put out an ad on Facebook and they may reject and say, you know what, we're not going to promote this ad. The problem is they're all US driven. Again, they're not proper ad laws. They're just certain ways where you're putting in. So my point is there are a lot of murky rules as marketers which we see here and there. Will capitalism end in India? No. Will we all strive for profit? Yes. Should we strive for sustainable profit? Absolutely yes. Is there a need for awareness among marketers to what is right and what is wrong? Yes. Is there a need for marketers to go back to the basics of what really moves a consumer to build a sustainable company? Ultimately, the trust which we all talk about, ultimately what a marketer, advertisers ultimately trying to do. It's all about getting that trust, right? Yes. So I think we need to have a detailed discussion, not just one, multiple such discussions. Good time that thanks to Supreme Court we're having this discussion. But I think we're also wasting their time in some sense. So that's my take on this.
Thank you. Shashank, Sudhir, yours.
Firstly, a very warm good evening. Thanks to MMA to have me here. I completely agree with Irango. In fact, that was the first part of my conversation. Till the time we consider it is to be a war, we would be on the wrong side of the moral compass. It's a very simple thing. War, a very interesting connotation of war is that the preamble of the UN says that it is to save the successive generations from the scars of war. So we know what the real face and look of war is. And it's in the 16th century, it was said that everything is fair in love and war. So it cannot be a war with competition. It's cutthroat, it's gory, it's lawless. If we look at our own mythology, Mahabharata tried to have a code of conduct for the war. That was violated. Unfortunately, any war-like situation would always warrant a certain justification of whatever people are doing. So the first submission is that we have to get out of this thing that it is not a war. It is a healthy competition. Now the interesting thing is that if we compare ourselves with politicians, media, and when I say us, I'm talking about the advertising industry, or creators, or advertisers, or producers of commercial content. Okay? If we look at media, if we look at politicians, if we look at spiritual gurus, and if we look at us, is there something common in us, or common amongst us? Do we have anything in common? Sorry? Yeah, very true. Very true. A very, very fabled and a very celebrated writer did say about this. What else is common?
You guys want mind share.
Hold the mic closer to your mouth.
What else is?
You guys want mind share.
Okay.
Promise a new thing.
Sorry?
Promise a new thing. Promise a new thing.
Promise a new thing, okay? So I think the thing is that we do have an impact on people, right? There is social impact. Sorry? Which means we have an impact, right? Politicians have an impact, we quibble about them. Media has an impact, we quibble about them. Films have an impact, we quibble about them. If we would like to believe that our actions have impact, we need to be socially responsible. So as far as this whole conversation is concerned for me, the starting point is that it has to start from the fact that we have social implications. Period. There is no debate, there is no interpretation, there is no scope for any interpretation on that front. And that is not any purposive thing, that is not any moralistic thing. That's a simple social obligation that as a business we have towards society. Now if that be the case, as a practitioner, what is my guardrail? And I'm sharing what I follow as a guardrail because, the whole landscape of communication has changed. Nobody has a clue as to what works today. We used to joke that 50% of advertising lies in waste. Today, thanks to one stream of digital marketing, people have identified 23% lies in waste, which is ad fraud. One of the reports says that out of the 51,000 crores money going into digital advertising, nearly 10% is a victim of ad fraud. So we are talking about 5,000 crores into ad fraud. There is something seriously fishy out there and which we need to be very careful about, which brings to the first thing. No, I'm not asking to shun digital. No, digital is a reality. It has its fabulous benefits. It is a question for me when I do on my work. It's a question is that how do I trade with caution? As an industry, we need to understand how can we fight this fraud. It is not just a monetary loss. What it does is that it adds back to the consumer cynicism around every commercial piece of content that we are putting out. It puts a question mark. Somebody from the back said that lies, yes, H.G. Wells did say that advertising is legalized lying. So back in the day there was a cynicism, there was such level of cynicism. So there is a certain need, there is a crying need to overcome that. And today we are seeing that. There are three large issues which we feel is adding to this whole woe of advertising being lying, deceitful. One is misplaced product claims, misleading product claims. Second is this whole thing of token woke. All of a sudden you become socially conscious and you do something tokenism. And the third is about how do you create misguided hyperbole or how do you conceal information. I think fundamentally we need to understand one thing. We exist because of consumers or customers. And the customers have a voice today. For the longest time, the power equation was very, very warped. The power equation has changed. The customer has a voice. The customer will express. Not that every time the customer is truthful. That's also true. But the fact of the matter is that the customer would always have an anti-voice. Because they are smaller in an individual capacity. And with this whole circuit getting closed with digital, the first thing that I think we need to be all very cautious of is that how do we fight fraud or fraudulent messages. There is this series on Prime called Patal Lok. It's a Hindi series. So there was this inspector who's not an IPS grade officer. Whenever he would say something of some wisdom or intelligence, he would self-mockingly say that I learned it on WhatsApp University. That's the level of distrust that has crept into our lives today. So as practitioners, for me, the first two guardrails are that how do I ensure, because see the cost of rebuilding reputation is far higher than building reputation. People will give you the chance to build reputation. But once you've lost it, the cost is very, very high. So these are two business angles from a pure return on capital invested. Unless we are mindful of these things, we are going to be pulling ourselves down. Competition will not be healthy. We will be, investment-wise, not very prudent. The other three are slightly more softer issues, or more moral compass issues led. We've spoken about competition and how do we handle competition. I think everybody takes a banter very rightly. We've all known about the famous things of Avis and Hertz. Right? They're saying that we are number 2, we keep trying harder. We've seen the Mac versus PC. Those are banters. Like, that doesn't harm anybody, there is no malice. But slander is not okay. Again, that's a guardrail. That am I being malicious about someone? I can mock a fun. I mean, people do that, friends do that. They are all friends outside. Fourth thing is being mindful of what do I put out. I can gain attention very easily. But am I putting out something unnecessarily contentious? Is it becoming a clickbait? And it is not just a digital phenomenon. It is a phenomenon that we've seen even in what is called mainline advertising. I don't know if you guys have noticed this Bombay Shaving Company post about Prachi Nigam. It's very recent. Right? It's opportunistic. It's opportunistic, it's downright, it's a personal view, sorry. I found it to be opportunistic, I found it to be... And the other thing is that this whole thing of, I don't need to respond and react or jump to everything. If you ask an opening batsman, the first thing that they would be taught is how to let go. Balls leave outside the off stump. If you keep flashing around, you will nick. I think that's what we are getting drawn into. Let balls leave. Let go of some deliveries outside off stump. And the fifth piece is that how do we use technology judiciously? AI is a great liberator, but AI also arouses and it rather raises questions on deepfakes. There is no line, there is no definition as to what is a deepfake and what is a genuine usage of AI. I don't have an answer today, but I think as long as we are mindful, I think we will have fundamentally a lot more responsible and responsive work being pushed out to the consumer community.
Thank you, Shubhdeep. Yeah, so while we also wait to get some questions from the audience, I think Captain G is putting them together. We'd like to definitely hear more from Manisha, who's come all the way from Bombay. So Chennai needs to make the most of our time with her. Yeah, so Manisha, just one question. As the leader of ASCII and given the new media circumstances that we are in, the new age media, where you talked about when we were back in the room, it's not just the proliferation of media. There is, every individual can be a channel today. It is also about how every little small business can be an advertiser today. They're enabled, and everybody. So there are millions of pieces of advertising that are getting pushed out today. So as you grapple with this changing digital media landscape, what is keeping you awake at night? As a ASCII person, what are ASCII's thoughts and initiatives in this space of digital media regulation?
I must begin by saying that I'm a reasonably sound sleeper, but yeah, but I think all the challenges that you mentioned on digital are a real nightmare for any regulator. I mean, whether it's ASCII or whether it's the government, and I think one of the challenges added to what you said is just the length of campaign durations these days, right? I mean, self-regulation and regulation also was kind of thought of as saying, okay, we are going to run a campaign, let's say, typically even maybe 7 or 8 years back, I mean, you would have campaigns which would run into 2 years, 3 years, right? So in month 2 you catch a campaign good, so 2 months have gone, but for the next 12 months it will run well. I mean, today I get complaints about ads after they have already disappeared, right? I mean, I have ephemeral ads where, I mean, how is a consumer supposed to even complain? I see an ad, let's say I'm playing, a game, I'm playing Candy Crush or I'm playing Sudoku or something, one ad pops up. Now, unless I have a screen recording facility, which, I mean, a normal consumer would not have, how do I even report an ad? Earlier I could say, okay, this ad came on this channel at this time, we would be able to pull up the ad. So, I think the challenges are, they're just mind-boggling. And which is why I think one of the things that we are doing, and I spoke briefly about it, is the academy. Because, see, one is that you are a willful violator. Okay, that you are out to cheat the consumers. I think for them, really, there is no other recourse but for the law to step in very strongly. Okay, but in our own experience, 95% of people who put out a misleading ad do it perhaps because they did not realize it was misleading, perhaps they did not know enough or think enough. Now, those are the people that can be influenced positively, right? To say that, if we as ASCII and, with the help of bodies like the MMA, talk to industry, train students who are going to come into the industry, and therefore it's only prevention. While, the road to prevention is really long. I mean, it'll take us several decades before we are able to adequately train everyone. But I think that is the only thing. Because once an ad is out in today's world, it's like something which has flown away from you. And before we say, okay, let's write to the advertiser, the ad is already gone, the campaign is over. So those are the challenges. Yeah, so I think for us, the biggest task in a sense for ASCII is how do we bring the industry together to understand the value of self-regulation. Because if we don't self-regulate, the government will come in, the cost of doing business increases when there is regulation rather than self-regulation. And please remember something like a creative field, okay, which is each ad is different, each nuance is different. I don't think any of us, including the government, does not want bureaucrats to be deciding what ad is right or not. You would want people from your own industry, your own peers, a jury of your own peers to decide whether it's right or wrong. So, in that sense, I think it's time for the industry to really put its might behind self-regulation. Because if we don't do it at this critical period of time, we may end up in a situation where you're increasing the cost of business in massive ways through compliances. So I think that's my spiel for, self-regulation. And I genuinely believe that, for a creative industry, it is probably a much superior solution than depending only on government regulation.
Thank you, Manisha. So, Shubdeep, you spoke about banter versus what do you say? Slander. Yeah, banter versus slander. So here's a question from Radhika from Coimbatore. I think she's given this question online. Can you share a few examples of successful advertising campaigns that have effectively navigated the competitive landscapes while maintaining ethical standards? So you spoke about some examples.
For that question. So first is PC versus Mac. It's a classic. The first example is PC versus Mac. It's a classic series. Avis and Hertz. Classic. Recently, I'm forgetting the... Britannia has a biscuit which has a cream on the top. No. It doesn't have another layer on top. Okay? So, basically it's a counter format to Oreo. And they took a jibe at Oreo because Oreo was doing this whole prediction around the World Cup. So they're saying before the T20 World Cup, their campaign was, please don't predict. Every time you've predicted, India has lost. And if you want to have the biscuit, have my biscuit, it has the same thing. I found it cute. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's done in a good spirit. These are three examples which, I would...
Anybody else? Anything that comes to mind? Yeah. I think Shruti mentioned Coke versus Pepsi. Those are also classic banter that's been running for a long, long time. And that kind of built the image, the aura, the character of Pepsi as a irreverent, happy brand for the young people types, So that's something. Nothing official about it.
Nothing official about it. And that whole thing it's a cola at the end of the day. There is a certain set of people who drink Coke. There is a certain set of people who drink Pepsi. We are different. That's about it.
And if you want a little more entertainment, you can probably go and search on YouTube for Samsung versus Apple ads. It's also hilarious.
Boat has gotten into the bandwagon recently when they took a jibe at Apple.
I also mentioned the example of Coke set up at 5 or 6 featuring Amir Khan, which was about Fanta versus Coca-Cola. It was a very healthy set of ads. They were never bothered.
Absolutely. Fabulous example. Correct.
Rather, we are bothered only about the content.
Category dominance. Absolutely. Very, 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 very great example. Lovely example, sir. See, I think Savlon came into the game little late and they have been taking very different path, in my opinion, in my personal opinion. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that unfortunately when Savlon said it doesn't hurt, it doesn't really help Savlon go anywhere. But we also have to look at it that if I have done a banter, then it's not a question of doing a banter for banter's sake. If you listen to Virendra Sehwag's interviews, when he would have a banter with his opponent bowlers, he would to do it to fire them off. And so that they start bowling him in his arc. So similarly, when if I'm doing a banter, I must gain something out of it. It's a great thing, I know. Savlon tried to do that it doesn't burn, but it didn't really take them anywhere at that point in time. They came back strong in a very different avatar.
Yeah, we have a question from the audience there, yeah? Oh, okay. It comes on the slip. Okay. So while we are at it, another question for the panelists here. Sanjay has asked this question online. How do cultural differences and regional nuances impact the competitive advertising or strategies? And how do you leverage this effectively? He's talking about cultural and regional.
Right. So, a simple example, right? Things which are true in Tamil Nadu may not be true in Kerala. It's neighboring states, right? Fortunately for us, we have been working in the cement industry for the last 75 years. Right? So we kind of have been dealing with AP, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. You see, from a north perspective, they consider that south. So that must be one communication for all. The fact is, today marketers are very judgmental, generally, and that also shows when we are judgmental, I think there's a lot of knowledge which we need to equip ourselves. For example, a place like Bengal, right? What you would talk there versus what you would talk in Tamil Nadu for a same set of category would be very different, and how it is being used would be very different. Simple, I can give you a very simple example of, because he was telling me about, he has worked recently for a company called Darby, one of our competitors. But a simple thing like, cement, I'll give you a very simple classic example, which I think I told Elongo also once. In the East, simple thing, one big insight which came as part of promotion is that, and this only happens when you're in the shop or you're in the market. So what came out was, people were trying to put claims on the quality saying, I have built this temple, I have built this structure, MS Dhoni promotes this, blah, 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 brand ambassadors, all the way. Finally, net, the reason why one brand was selling more than the other was because the shopkeeper, the mason would come to the shopkeeper, open the bag of cement, take the cement into his mouth, and he would say, Acha, it's fighting. There's something scratch happening. That means the good cement. Now imagine, why? Because people in the East eat a lot of tobacco. So they know tobacco, basically tobacco. So because they were eating out of it, they could understand, okay, the cement is creating that rust. That's what it does in the product properties. So all the product properties came because the mason was able, or the consumer in this case, was able to decipher everything on his own. A very simple case of where a product, now if I were to use this in Tamil Nadu, right? A simple example. So Where the inside is very simple, there's a certain action which happens in a cement, because of which the cement becomes, or the building becomes strong. And ultimately people want strong buildings. Ultimately people build buildings for the next generations. So yeah, nuances can change from year to year, depending upon which area you are in India.
Yeah, we have one more that maybe Manisha can help us with. It's a question from Kishore. What role do regulatory bodies play in ensuring fair competition in advertising, and what steps can advertisers take to ensure compliance with regulators? But maybe this part. Is the regulation effective in India? What's been your experience on this? How effective have your measures been?
I'll answer the second part first. So I would say that self-regulation has been reasonably successful. And especially in advertising, we see that even globally, and I think I mentioned some of the reasons earlier, is because it is a creative field, and how do you judge whether something is right or wrong? So, it's not my personal opinion or somebody else's personal opinion, so there is a code. Okay, so there is a code. So it's not whether I like the ad or I don't like the ad. If it violates the code, it's violative. And who decides whether it violates the code? It's a jury which comprises people not only from the industry but also from civil society. So these are people who are representing both industry and consumer interests, who are evaluating, an ad which we feel may be violative of the code. Interestingly, almost all our decisions are unanimous, which means that whether you're from the industry or whether you belong to civil society, when you see an ad, you are kind of consistent in your conclusion whether it is misleading or not. So, and when I talk of voluntary compliance, which is what self-regulation is, so out of 100 ads that, we would, adjudicate or, take to a jury, almost 95% of them we receive voluntary compliance. And they are not just members of ASCII, but even companies which are not members of ASCII. So we have a 95% compliance rate. As I say, for willful and repeat offenders, the law and the courts have to step in. So self-regulation cannot solve the full problem, but it can solve a lot of the problem. And we also have to remember that regulation is also a series of steps. It's like, for example, if just think of security, right? I mean, you have a building security, then you have the police, then you have the army. All three of them are essentially doing, notionally you can say the same job of keeping someone safe, but the levels at which you do it is different. You're not, if you have a fight with your neighbor, you're not going to call the army. So if that fight can be settled there, why call the police? And if it can be settled there, why call the army? So I think that's a structural way to understand self-regulation, that it is only one part of overall regulation, in terms of just how structurally it operates.
Is there a scope of giving positive incentives for people for reporting fraudulent ads as consumers? I know there are punishments, but is there a positive?
We did try, especially with students, to kind of train them on the ASCII code, give out certificates if they reported a certain number of cases which were, which we could take to our jury, so that there were valid complaints in that sense. So we've done a few experiments, I would say nothing on a very large scale. So I think it's one of the things that we can certainly look at, is to create cohorts of vigilant consumers, I don't know whether we can incentivize, but certainly I think the fact that we can resolve that issue, is a great motivator for someone to bring it up in the first place.
Yeah, okay. Here's one more question from Keertana. Maybe Shashank, if you want to try this. In markets where there are dominant players, how can smaller brands effectively compete without resorting to aggressive tactics that may strain relationship with their competitor?
Does it strain relationship with the competitor?
Yeah, the dominant competitor, I'm thinking.
I'm sorry, but you may, if you're going to take some part of the market, you will strain relationship with the competitor. Maybe not there, but in the boardrooms, you will be a talking point. Ultimately, you have to answer the basic question of, what is it? How do you, the basic terms of marketing, as we discussed, right? First of all, who's your consumer? Do the proper market research. Understand more about him. There is definitely, as I think all the panelists have said, there is definitely a nuance of the same possibly insight which that consumer is going through for your given category as a small player, which no one has invaded into and which have a high memorability, right? Is memorability only linked to certain extreme measures? Extreme measures do have a memorability, yes, but then they don't build the trust factor. And as long as in your boardrooms or in the decision-making rooms, you're very clear that I'm here to stay for the next 4-5 years and I want to increase the market share, commercials, advertisements, always remember are only maybe 1/5 of the story. Always. There's a lot of things which can happen at the product level, at the customer feedback level, and other things. His customer the communication, is it a big part of you being out there in the brand and talking about it? Yes. But is that the only reason why a consumer will choose you? Absolutely not. Let me put it very simple. Is that the only reason why the customer will choose your competitor? No. There are a lot of 1,000 things which are happening, and these are basic tenets of marketing. There's nothing great about them. As long as we follow and understand that communication will and always will remain only 20 to 30% of the reason why a consumer may move towards you. Maybe first time he will purchase you. Will you get repeat purchases from him? That's a question, because as marketers, that's what I'm looking at. Ultimately, I'm looking at how much can I reduce the scale and get more repeat purchases, because that will help me to reduce my advertising cost ultimately and develop a better P&L, right? If I'm talking pure money, ultimately. So I think fighting with competitors in a specific market, communication is one part of it. To handle communication, understand the insight, but also understand that you're there for the long term. At least give yourself a 5-year plan. The government of India gives themselves a 5-year plan. You can definitely, if you're an interested plan. And ultimately, also understand that the communication is just one part of the story. Always. There are a lot of things, how your consumer feels your product, experiences your product, your services, if that's the case, and develop a monopoly. Best examples are Zerodha, who have not done any marketing.
If I may just add to that, I think, you can do things that, that will take share from your competition and also win their admiration. They may not necessarily, feel very good about it, but, if you understand your consumers in a way that, let's say, your competitor doesn't, and that's why you're winning in the market. Trust me, you will get the respect of your competition. Like I said, they may not like you very much, but they will respect you.
So one more, for Manisha, maybe this is up your lane, I think. It's from Shakti from Nagpur. Can you share any experiences where competitive advertising escalated into legal disputes, and what lessons were learned from those situations? Any examples?
You asked me what keeps me awake at night. This is one of those things. So it will be interesting for you to know that after ASCI gives its recommendations, which are only voluntary in nature, a lot of organizations take ASCI to court as well. Okay, and sometimes that happens in intra-industry disputes where one, person is kind of filing a case against the other, and we have a few specific corporates who, whenever the decision is in their favor, are very happy, but the moment the decision is not in their favor, actually not a decision, it's a recommendation, is not in their favor, they will take ASCI to court and take that competitor to court. So there are several such, cases that do go into court, and ASCI sometimes gets dragged along. So, at some point the honey war happened a couple of years back. There are some court cases going on. There are toilet cleaner wars happened. There are some court cases going on. So so we are, so we do have, some corporates who are very litigious. And I would say that maybe essentially they don't actually believe in self-regulation, because you cannot believe in self-regulation only when it's convenient. And I always say this, that, no company would like a recommendation to go against them, right? Because in their minds they have done their due diligence, or they feel that they are right when they put out a piece of communication. So they may actually fight with us very vigorously on a specific piece of ad, but they will back self-regulation to the hilt. So they know that they can come and argue with us. I'm sure they cannot go and argue with the government in the same way, or they cannot, reason with us, or they will not have the kind of time that we are willing to invest in listening to them. The time to, update our procedures. So I think that's really the support that we get. But yeah, like I said, I mean, in some cases, these things do go out, into the court. So again, there are advantages and disadvantages. What happens in the court is enforceable, versus what we do is recommendatory. So people may wish to do that. But yeah, I mean, what we will do in 10 days, it may take 2 years in the court. So I think those are the pros and cons that, need to be assessed. If companies want to file cases, I mean, ASCII is a fraction of the cost. They can even do it free of cost, versus going to the court where, they will be paying hefty lawyer fees. So I guess it really depends on, each case and what the company wants to achieve out of, that argument with its competitor.
All right. Thank you. So another question from Pranav. Maybe Shubdeep or Shashank, you can take this. What are some best practices for engaging in competitive intelligence gathering and analysis to designing advertising strategies?
So, if you could repeat this.
Yeah. What are some best practices for engaging in competitive intelligence gathering? I think we are talking about competitive analysis and inputs from competition while designing advertising strategies.
See, the thing is that when you are trying to learn from what your competitor is doing, it's quite out there. Right? Across the channel. I'm not talking just about advertising, but if I look at the whole marketing mix, because you have your sales team out in the market, so you know your trade margins, you know your trade practices, you know everything out there. So, that's the easiest to do. But is it the right thing? Not on an ethical level. Is what the competition doing, is that the best answer? Is that their critical success factor? I think that needs to be evaluated. They might be gaining in the market for a lot of other reasons. It is not necessary that you have to do exactly what they are doing, because if it's a very dominant competitor, then what would happen is that if you play their game, you give up the advantage because they are a master at their game. So, getting to know the competitive activity is easy. Whether you want to implement is a judgment call.
Okay. Yeah, 5 more minutes. Maybe this is again on the banter versus slander. I don't know if this is which category this is, but a question from the audience regarding the ad for Sebamed versus Dog. More than banter, it was a proven ad of its effectiveness against its competition. Right? What are your views on such surgical strikes, and how does the affected brand recover?
I can give you some insight.
Yeah, so because she must have handled some of this.
Yeah. So in fact, not just Sebamed, when Dove had launched, Dove had also done the same thing on saying that, stuff like that. So the pH of different soaps sometimes is not the only factor which, creates the end benefits of a soap. So if you remember, one of the things I had briefly mentioned is that you cannot choose a point of comparison which gives you an unfair advantage. You may have a more balanced pH than your competitor, but does that do anything in the soap? Does it actually help you in delivering the benefits, etc.? So I think that's one of the questions in that case that was asked, whether that pH balance actually delivers. Can you promise softer skin, or can you promise better cleansing as, with regard to that? And it turned out not really.
Okay. All right. I think we've had enough of these inputs for you to take something home. Thank you, everybody, and over to Captain.
Thank you, Elango. We have over 700 participants watching online. So many questions have come. But I think within the given time, we just given a teaser just to kindle your thought process. I think we have achieved what we want to do, that, and you'll go back home thinking what to be done. And ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to the distinguished panel here for sharing their insights. Now I request Sundaram and Satyamurthy come on stage. And we just present a memento as a token of our appreciation. Would you like to join us on stage, sir? Come. We're going to give you some more book to read. Come, sit for. Come. Come. The comfortable with the MMA. You know, all about MMA is the pictorial. Picture. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You can interact with the panelists offline. Why we tell only question slip, because when you give the mic, you tend to speak quite a lot on the subject. I think let the speaker speak what we are. That's the reason we request you, and sorry for the inconvenience. We only to accommodate as many questions as possible. Still, we couldn't accommodate all the questions. Thanks so much.